Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show. It is Monday at about 9:30. We had our first, well, not our first, but our second snowstorm, first snowstorm of this year, and so it was pretty sweet. I didn't do anything yesterday. I watched a shit ton of movies. It was great. I taught a lesson in the morning. The last week and a half or so have been pretty busy, and it kind of all the whole week and a half or so kind of caught up with me yesterday. So I slept a lot, and it was pretty chill. It was nice, but I watched a shit ton of movies, so it was very cool. I so very very excited since I just recently got a new internet set up. So now it feels great to be back in action as far as recording videos and being able to upload them, anytime, and it's way easier. We had a big storm about. It was around Christmas time. It was right before Christmas. We had this big storm that hit our area here, and there were massive power outages, and people were without power for quite a long time. I didn't lose it for that long, just a couple of days. But my internet started getting really wonky at that point, and then came back, got the power back, and then my internet went completely, and realized the my stuff was dead. So I had to figure out a new plan, and I just got new internet. My modem had died, and tried a bunch of things, and then I got just got a whole new setup, and so far so good. It's great. It's pretty. It's a pretty high speed connection, and I'm loving it. It's makes things a lot easier. I was having to rely on my phone because I get internet on my phone, but my phone, is only limited, and I don't like to go online too much with my phone because it starts slowing everything up. So, and I don't like doing videos on my phone anymore because the quality is kind of crappy and it takes forever. So now I got everything back in place, so I can go back to making videos pretty regularly. So I've been uploading a shit ton of movie reviews. I Even when I didn't have power, which was about a week and a half to 2 weeks, or I should say, when I didn't have internet, which was about a week, almost 2 weeks, I was still recording videos. I was able to still do that. But since I got it back on Friday, I've been uploading a shit ton of videos. So there's a bunch coming your way. Check them out. I really appreciate the new people who have been subscribing to the Film Fanatic channel. It's a lot of fun. So yeah, cheers. So again, one of the coolest things that I love, and I've said many times, I love discovering new movies. Movies that I might have heard about, or movies that I've come across in my travels that look really intriguing, but maybe for various reasons I end up passing on it because am I end up getting something else, or what have you. So I went to Bull Moose last weekend, and it was, or I should say, about 2 weeks ago. I went to Bull Moose again in Bangor, and Bull Moose, of course, my home away from home, and I got some really great movies, some really awesome movies. I got a pretty good pile of some pretty sick horror exploitation movies. And pretty much every movie that I bought, I've never seen. I've never seen them before, and for the most part, I had never heard of them. So I just kind of went into it blindly, and so far, it's been amazing. I just started. I kind of was inundated with another stack of movies that I've been wanting to get to, and I've gone through most of those for the most part, and now I'm starting in on the newer pile of movies that I got, and super awesome. This this movie I'm going to be talking about today is I watched this for the first time last night. Didn't know anything about it, never heard of it. Definitely have never seen it before. Just totally bought it. It was a little bit expensive, but it's totally worth it. Totally worth it. And that is this Spanish film called Tombs of the Blind Dead. This movie is pretty amazing. I had never seen it before. It's from 1972. It's a Spanish film. It has so much in way of special features. There's two different versions of this film. There's the regular, I guess you would say the U.S. Distribution or national distribution. There's a regular theatrical cut on. There's two discs. The first disc is the theatrical cut. It's all Blu-ray, and then the second disc. In that version too, the theatrical cut comes with a shit ton of special features. There's documentaries, there's interviews, there's all kinds of stuff. And then the other version that I did watch last night is the original Spanish version. It's all in, Spanish, and it's all in English subtitles. And it was amazing. I was blown away by it. 1972. It was directed by de Ossorio, Amando de Ossorio, who again I've never heard of, and in my research, since I've been checking him out, he was a pretty prolific director in Spain. He made a series of these movies that were essentially a trilogy of the Blind Dead. Tombs of the Blind Dead, which is today's movie, which I'm going to be talking about, 72. Return of the Blind Dead in 73. Night of the Seagulls in 75. The Ghost Galleon in 74. The Laurel's Grasp in 1973. Demon Witch Child in 75. Fangs of the Living Dead in 69. Many movies to his credit. The Night of the Witches in 74. The Sea Serpent in 84. Canadian Wilderness in 65. And Tomb of the Pistolero in 64. Pretty wild. And from what, again, I had never heard of Amando de Ossorio before as a director. And there are some really awesome special features, like I said, in this collection. And so I've been, checking it out and been really, impressed. Really, again, it's a new director for me, and someone else to check out. I had never seen any of his films before. So very cool discovery. And from what I was gathering from some of these special features, the films of Amando de Ossorio, it wasn't until he made Tombs of the Blind Dead that movie really kind of catapulted his career. He was, a pretty, like I said, and just reading off this list of different films that he made in the 60s and 70s. He started his career in the 50s. He was a pretty prolific exploitation director, but it wasn't until this movie came out, I guess, that where he was, it put his name in the light, and it kind of really catapulted his career, and he became very popular. And again, this movie, I'm just amazed that this came out in 72. The atmosphere for this film, again, I've said many times, if I watch a movie and say maybe the writing isn't particularly great, say the editing isn't great, the acting might be kind of shitty, what have you, but if it has this atmosphere to it and it pulls me in, I will most likely really enjoy the film, even with those big kind of stains on it. So, but this film, again, 72, and this movie has so much atmosphere to it. It's so incredibly creepy, and it's pretty gory. It's kind of fucked up at times, and it's kind of centered on the whole kind of historical account of the Knights of Templar. It's loosely based on that, and it's basically centered on these knights that were accused of witchcraft, and they eventually get tried and convicted through like the Inquisition, and they come back as these zombie slash demon slash mummies. And there are these scenes of where they are on horseback, and there's all these scenes of where you first when you first see them on the screen, the cinematography is just incredible, and it takes place in this castle, this giant graveyard, these kind of catacombs, beautiful location, and it's all set in Spain. And the scenes of them riding on horseback, it's all the cinematography is just amazing, and it's all like slow motion, and it's so creepy with all of this fog. Amazing atmosphere, and the kills are really great. And when I think of, again, that this movie was made in 72, it's kind of a trip. It's completely wild. And this movie has like an interesting kind of mixture of where it's a zombie movie, but it also is kind of a vampire movie all at once. And it's kind of a ghost story. It's kind of an interesting blend. It's kind of an interesting blend of like three different horror genres together. But the atmosphere is just awesome. The kills are really great. It's pretty gory. It gets more and more gory. The last half of this film is just awesome. It's got a really great payoff. And again, and the music is just fantastic. But the thing about this movie that I love the most is the how creepy this movie is. It's so incredibly creepy and atmospheric. And you know, it's over 50 years old, and it's like, and the other thing is it's so incredibly low budget. I almost think that this movie was probably even so low budget compared to the times of when this film came out, but especially now. Compared to a film that comes out now, you'd think this movie was made for like, $25 or whatever. But it just looks so awesome. And again, the kills are great. It's pretty gory, and there's some pretty disturbing things in the film. When we're introduced to these demons or these undead knights, there's such a great level of suspense and build up until we finally see them on horseback, and it's so awesome. I was really blown away by it, and I watched the Spanish version, and I'm really excited to check out the American version. I've heard that the American version, apparently this movie came out right when the Planet of the Apes movies came out in the 70s, and the distributor and some of the companies involved with this film wanted to really cater to that audience because those movies were very popular. So they changed a lot of the story. From what I read, they actually turned some of these creatures into apes to kind of gather the audience that was apparently really into the Planet of the Apes films at the time because they were a commercial hit. Those are awesome movies. Those are movies I would love to eventually talk about too. Very weird, very strange, but I guess that's in the American version. And so I'm going to check that out. I'm super curious to see how kind of terrible that can be. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes movies that are in a state of chaos and they have all kinds of interference from the studio, especially in the exploitation world where they're trying to like cater to this crowd or cater to that crowd, and things get really askew, and it becomes for all intents and purposes on paper an utter mess, like a chaotic pile of shit. Sometimes being that I love exploitation movies so much and it's my favorite genre of all time, as weird as it is to say, I sometimes think all of the disaster that sometimes happens in some of the disaster stories I've heard with certain films that were made because of maybe studio interference or distribution interference. Films were chopped up in half and re-edited, and they were trying to like make it for this market and then try to make a different version for this market, or they retitle the movie, or they use different artwork. There's a dub version, there's the original language. Sometimes all of that chaos really can, I think, in a world of exploitation, almost make the movie better, in a weird way. I think one of the best examples of that, I think the best example of that is the Spookies. I did a show on that way back when, and I love that movie to death. But the whole story of how that movie was made and conceived is like a complete an utter clusterfuck in every way. But I love the movie. I love that it's. I think because it's such an utter fucking train wreck, it kind of makes the movie awesome. So I'm super curious as to what the American version is going to be like. So I'm going to check that out tonight. And so I will probably do a second review for this movie. But amazing. It's got all the great characteristics of why I love horror exploitation movies. Super gritty. It's kind of dirty. It's kind of nasty. Uh, Great, super cheesy practical effects, but they're actually highly effective. Amazing atmosphere. Great music. Great locations. Um, it's just great, and it's super fun. It's super fun. I will probably do. I'm definitely going to watch the American version, and I will probably do another review of the American version of this film, or the regular theatrical version. I've said this many many times. A lot of the movies, a lot of the exploitation movies that I've been buying, are technically foreign films, and I find that if I have the option on a lot of these Blu-rays, which they do, thankfully, a lot of these Blu-ray editions and 4K editions, um, although I don't have a 4K player, um, have the regular theatrical version or the U.S. version, and then they usually always have the original native um, language version. And I always find that if you watch the original cut in its native language with English subtitles, I 9 times out of 10 it's better. The story makes more sense. It's more cohesive. The editing is better. It just makes more sense, and they tend to be a little bit more on the gory side. There's less cuts, and so that's always the way I go when it comes to watching foreign films, and in this case exploitation movies. But I'm really curious. I'm really curious to see what the American version is. I think one of the big examples. There's many many examples, but one of the movies I can think of is Pieces. Also another you know amazing horror slasher film from Spain as well. I have that on Blu-ray. I have this really amazing edition of that film on Blu-ray, and there are two versions of it. There's an American version, and then there's the original Spanish version. And I've seen both versions, and by far I prefer the original Spanish version. It's very different. It's very very different. The both films, and but I love having that option. Another movie where uh, there are two versions of the film, and they are so incredibly different. And that is this Canadian movie, which is one of my all-time favorite horror exploitation movies, The Siege. Such an awesome movie. I just watched it again the other night. And I have a beautiful edition of that on Blu-ray. And the same thing. There's a like a theatrical cut, and then there's an like a director's cut version of that, and there's a night and day difference between the two, and I prefer the director's cut. It's way better. It's way more direct and more focused on the story itself. But super cool, amazing, totally blown away. Again, a new director, you know, directing and first time viewing of this film. So I'm going to be checking out all of his work, and I'm probably going to be doing a second show on Tombs of the Blind Dead on the theatrical version. So thanks again, and enjoy digging out of the snow. Peace.